Morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning. Hope you're doing great. Double B. Good morning, fanatics. We love it. We love it. Excellent. I'm a little early. Hit the button. I think we should refer to us as connoisseurs, not fanatics. Big difference anyway. Good morning, Bitcoiners. We like it. Connoisseurs is good. We like connoisseurs. Good morning, T-Dog Yodio. Hope you're doing great, man. Ben, buenos dias, Bitcoiners. B for victory. Bomatang, good morning, Bitcoiners. BA Shelter, that thumbnail is fire. Thank you. Thank you. I had there was actually about 4 or 5 I had in the running, and I had to, there's a great new feature on Midjourney which allows you to vary your images a little or a lot. So I had 4 in the running, and I was doing a lot of little different ones. They're all good, so it was hard to choose. I'm glad you liked the one that I chose. Let's see. Morning, team. Good morning, connoisseurs. Indeed. Morning, P-Man Van. Hey, Nolan, do you know why FedWatch is no longer on BM? Yeah, I think it's going to be broadcast on Ansel's own channels yesterday. So it was a bit of news to me. I told you yesterday I would be on FedWatch, and then I was waiting for the notes that I normally get before. And I found out it's going to be changed up a little bit. So I don't think you're going to be seeing the broadcast on the normal channels. Ansel is still going to be writing for Bitcoin Magazine, but I think he and I are going to do, well, he's going to do his own show, and then I'm going to be on it from time to time. So there you go. That's what's going on. So pardon the confusion yesterday, P-Man. Sorry, it is my favorite show as well. I'm a big fan of FedWatch, but we will be doing it again in different context. All right, team. Thanks for all the good mornings. Glad everyone is here. Let's just acknowledge we've got a dark morning here in Montreal, but that sun is up and Bitcoin is running without any problems whatsoever. All that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what is new. And boy, oh boy, new news. New news today. All kinds of stuff. But we like to start our news day with the fake news. We like all the fake news, right? We're big fans of fake news. This one's pretty good, right? We brought you the update yesterday on what's going on with Texas, and they're shipping the migrants and buses to New York. Turns out it's actually not that many that are actually coming from Texas. It's just all kinds of people who want to go to New York, right? But it turns out this is from the Biden administration. Breaking: Biden administration considers forcing migrant families who enter the country without authorization to remain in Texas. That's going to work out great. This one's fun. This comes from, I believe the United Kingdom. Yeah, there it is, the Telegraph. All right, so this comes from the Telegraph. Now, let this one sink in. Property owners who don't comply with new energy rules may face prison. What? Minister, I swear to you, the milk I bought had a carbon offset for the container here in Quebec. All right, am I okay? Am I going to jail? Maybe not. Ministers want to grant powers to create new criminal offenses and increase penalties as part of efforts to hit net zero targets. Whew. Life's great in UK. How about this one? This is in America. Harvard is named the worst school for free speech, scoring 0 out of a possible 100. Pretty good one. Another one in America. For real. Susie Nelson is the writer of this one. The mystery of San Francisco's car break-in crisis. Why is it so bad here and not elsewhere? It's a mystery. We'll never know. Everybody's wondering why it's San Francisco. It's such a mystery. And this one's from the New York Times. All right, the New York Times. We've heard a lot about, plant a tree, right? Plant a tree, and it will help with the global warming stuff, right? Deforestation is bad, right? So of course the opposite should be good, right? Planting trees should be good if deforestation is so bad. Not according to the New York Times. Forests, this is the headline. Ready for it? Forests are no longer our climate friends. Boom. Now you know. Now you know. Now you know. Now we have a special section this morning, right? Normally we do our special sections for, remember when I predicted they would be all kinds of crazy attack ads on RFK and Vivek, right? That happened. So that was a special section for a while. Then we had a special section for the Sound of Freedom, the movie about child trafficking, right? So we predicted there would be a bunch of fake news about that. It happened. Then the Richmond, north of Richmond song came out, and we said, well, there's going to be a bunch of attack ads on this. And sure enough, all the attack ads came, right? Here's a new one. This is a subcategory, and this is going to be headlines that are negative for Elon Musk for stopping a nuclear war. Major unhappiness at the major U.S. news networks today, because it turns out it looks like Elon had some involvement in ending or preventing a nuclear tiff between America and Russia. The Daily Beast. Musk secretly used Starlink to foil a Ukrainian drone attack on Russian ships. All right, so he secretly did it. The Washington Post. Musk cut the internet to Ukraine's military as it was attacking a Russian fleet. New details of the previously reported incident underscore how critical SpaceX has become to the U.S. government. And then finally, from the New Republic, this is a real headline, everyone. Okay, this is someone, Tori Otten. Tori Otten wrote this using the English language and probably a computer, and they might have even said this stuff out loud, but this in public. This is the actual headline. No kidding. Putin suck up Elon Musk shut off Starlink to stop a Ukrainian attack. A new report found Elon Musk used Starlink to disrupt a planned Ukrainian attack on Russia. Can you just imagine what this looks like in their mind? It's like all these freedom fighters in Ukraine. They were running to the front lines. We're going to get those Russians. Oh, what happened to my bars? Where are my bars? I have no bar. I have no internet. I can't check my messages. What are we going to do? Retreat. So if you didn't hear the story, right, the details are the following. And there's kind of a weird bit to this. So it starts with the allegation, I guess you can say, from Walter Isaacson. A lot of this comes from Walter Isaacson's book, by the way. Walter Isaacson writing the perhaps definitive biography on Elon Musk. Now, I'm a big fan of the Walter Isaacson book on Steve Jobs, right? So that's just one. I don't have much other experience with Walter Isaacson other than that book. Apparently, he's been shadowing Elon Musk for a while. We mentioned that when Elon bought the thing. When Elon came in with the sink, that was Walter Isaacson who took it to let that sink in when he bought X, right? That was him. Let's start. Maybe they will start propagandizing the broken brains to get Starlink nationalized. Yeah, they could. There's a lot of bad stuff happening with the Elon thing. So it starts off with Walter Isaacson saying he deactivated the thing. Okay, so Mario Nawfal runs to X and writes the following. Elon Musk covertly instructed his engineers to deactivate Starlink satellite communications network during a major Ukrainian offensive. This action was taken to intentionally thwart a surprise attack by Ukraine against the Russian naval fleet. The Ukrainian submarine drones armed with explosives mysteriously not lost connectivity as they advanced towards the Russian warships. Now we know that Musk intentionally deactivated Starlink. So that's where the fake news started. And I'm not accusing Walter Isaacson of lying, but he didn't have the story right. So this perpetrated in the news for a little while. We find out it's not exactly that, right? Elon replies to Mario Nawfal's post and says, no. We didn't deactivate. We refused to activate. Not the same thing. So this is what Elon Musk says. There was an emergency request from government authorities to activate Starlink all the way to Sevastopol. The obvious intent being to sink most of the Russian fleet at anchor. If I had agreed to their request, then SpaceX would be explicitly complicit in a major act of war and conflict escalation. Now, all kinds of people mentioning that, right? Talking about it yesterday. War Clandestine, who we love and follow. Holy shit, Elon playing a major role in not escalating World War III. Refuses to acquiesce to government authorities looking to use SpaceX to assist destroying Russia's fleet in the Baltic Sea. Absolutely wild. He goes on, Elon got emergency requests from NATO to mobilize Starlink to conduct a Pearl Harbor-like attack on Russia's fleet in the Black Sea. Then talked to the Russian military, who said it would 100% lead to a nuclear response. Then he sided with Russia and told all of us about it. War Clandestine going on. If Elon was a WEF deep state asset, would he have denied requests to help Ukraine, NATO attack Russia, and then tell the entire world about it? We can add today's events to the massive pile of evidence confirming Elon is a white hat. Elonophobes in shambles again. Kaneko the Great had some pretty interesting comments as well. He says the corporate media is churning out negative articles about Elon Musk, who has been generously providing free Starlink internet to Ukraine at a cost exceeding $80 million since the war began. Why? He doesn't want his satellites used in long-range drone attacks on Russia, as he fears it would worsen the conflict and even trigger nuclear war. Musk has firmly rejected the idea of allowing Starlink to be used in a way that could escalate the conflict into World War III. Here are some quotes from Musk since the war started. Starlink is the communication backbone of Ukraine, especially at the front lines where almost all other internet connectivity has been destroyed. But we will not enable escalation of conflict that may lead to World War III. He talks about its out-of-pocket cost. And then this is from Kaneko Substack. He goes on, Kaneko the Great, it's entirely reasonable not to want your satellite technology involved in triggering a catastrophic world war, especially with Russia, which would have dire consequences for humanity. And remember, that's what Elon said, right? When Elon rationalized his buying X and helped prevent you from having to read his mind, he said, I'm doing it for humanity, for whom I love, right? Those were his exact words. Now, you don't have to trust him. I'm not saying he was telling you the exact truth, right? But that's what he said. You don't necessarily have to mind read him. Was he lying? It doesn't look like it, right? He would be lying if he was out there risking nuclear war for a buck, right? Does that look like what is happening? I don't think so. Despite Musk's clear public statements that Starlink won't be used for long-range drone attacks, some media outlets are now attempting to tarnish his reputation for not permitting Starlink to be used in such a manner. So we'll see, right? But what we do see now, and other people asking, right? So this is another one from Kaneko. He says, the real question here is why Walter Isaacson, who just wrote a biography of Elon Musk, saying Elon turned it off while Elon is saying it was never turned on. So this is that whole interplay that we've been hearing now. Did he deactivate? Did he refuse to activate? Because there's a big difference, right? So Walter Isaacson looks like he got it wrong, saying he deactivated. Elon saying it was a never turned it on, right? But now you see the media trying to smear all around what's going on here, right? Mario Nawfal came in and mentioned as well that this whole confusion did happen. Lots of people sort of picking up on the attack. So we are going to add this as a special subsection to Moscow Time from now on. If we do find more Elon Musk thwarted U.S. military attempts at peace or some stupid shit like that, right? We're going to bring it out. We're going to show it. It all belongs in Moscow Time now. But really what I see here is just how much, and this is our theme today, right? A new hope springs where peers connect without puppet strings. And indeed, we're talking about that big realignment that people have noticed, the red and blue turning into green and orange, right? It's not red and blue, it's the state versus you. And the idea that the strings and incentives that come along with the US dollar and the manipulation of the systems that went into winning World War II now completely poisoned as we arrive at the threshold of World War III, because the money behind all of these things, behind all of these incentives, just completely broken. But the good news is things are realigning. It's not just in this conversation where we can clearly see, the idea that the U.S. military is the good guy and that you have to help them, that there is a realignment, and that the person who owns 80% of the tonnage in space, not interested in World War III, and will do what he needs to do as a private citizen and business owner in order to prevent that. And it doesn't look like he's going to get bullied by the United States government or any of these other things, or the US media, or people like Phil Bump and all these other losers. So, but that's not the whole story, right? Avoiding nuclear war shows the trend changing. We get this one from William Middlecoop, who will be a speaker at Bitcoin Amsterdam, October 12th and 13th. And this is about the nuclear sector revival, right? He had a tweet today which shows just how much the psychological acceptance of nuclear energy has changed very dramatically in a short amount of time. And to me, that is a sign that the strings that helped, let's call it divert energy that would otherwise have got a psychological energy, that diverted enthusiasm behind nuclear energy and parked it usually at the end of Greta's driveway, where she could just do whatever she felt like with the whole idea. Because if you didn't know, the whole European antithesis, the whole European opposition to nuclear energy was really a psyop by Putin. He paid for a bunch of research, so the Germans were dumb and didn't understand what they were doing. And because of that, they were listening to Greta too much. And by listening to Greta, they never really built the things they needed, like a nuclear power plant that would help them mitigate all of their energy problems, which they have today. So for a long time, and I don't think it was just Putin doing that, right? American energy interests might have had a similar goal. And if you think of the world in terms of petrodollar, that might be enough to explain why nuclear energy was stopped in its tracks 30 or 40 years ago, right? If you look at what happened in 1971 and the institution of the petrodollar system, you might begin to understand why there weren't a lot of incentives to create new energy systems. And you might understand where the propaganda that helped crystallize anti-nuclear mindsets in America came from, and around the world and in Europe and everywhere else, right? But this seems to be gone overnight. Coincidentally, the moment energy companies are faced with all kinds of issues because of this war. So here's what William Middlecoop says. Nuclear sector has almost overnight seen a complete revival. The increased interest in nuclear energy has resulted in higher projections for uranium reactor requirements compared to the 2021 report. Nuclear generation capacity is now expected to grow by nearly 4% annually. That's double what it was at before. In 2022, only 76% of reactor requirements were covered by primary uranium supply. Noting that primary uranium production has dropped considerably in recent years, production volumes for existing mines are projected to remain fairly stable. He goes on just talking about all of the new issues and all of the new momentum behind nuclear energy. Now, is this directly related to the changes we've seen in the Middle East, to the changes that American energy companies have in their place in the world? I think so, right? If it's so quick and it happens overnight, would you be able to conclude that the limiting and governing of that system was artificial? I think so, right? What was there really there to prevent nuclear energy from taking over? Probably just the inability of people to understand the engineering advancements that have happened, to understand that nuclear energy is safer now than it's ever been, that generation 3 and generation 4 reactors can't even have a meltdown, or generation 4 in particular, reactors we've never even built, right? So the entire question of safety around the nuclear reactors and all of that stuff, completely different now, right? We see the Saudis getting involved. Americans wouldn't sell them the technology. The Chinese have. The Japanese, after Fukushima, are now completely embracing nuclear power again and not listening to what America is telling them to do, and not listening to NGOs. So this is a big part of the shift that we have. And I think you can start to see that the puppet strings that were manipulating the conversations around nuclear energy are gone. Just like the puppet strings that would have manipulated Elon Musk into necessarily being deputized by the US military, gone. right? These don't exist anymore. There wasn't enough money in America to get Elon Musk to change his mind about what he's going to do. But the realignment that we see, the puppet strings, and our ability to see the puppet strings because we are realigning how we observe the world, read the world around us, our media literacy is up, our energy literacy is up, and our financial literacy is up. And because of those abilities to be literate in what are really the most important subjects in the threshold of World War III that we're at, right? Media literacy, energy literacy, financial literacy. If you have those things, you're going to have a better understanding of what World War III is all about. And you can see it perfectly here, right? This is, again, this kind of realignment by being able to isolate these puppet strings. One of the most amazing videos you'll ever see came out yesterday. And it's Dick Cheney, right? The Dick Cheney, who was, of course, George Bush's vice president, coming out and making a laughably stupid video, wearing his fake cowboy hat and all this stuff, talking about how Donald Trump isn't a real man. He's not a real man, right? And he says, in our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump, right? That's what he says. So, space drop for sure. This guy's airlocked and out. Whoops, that was my phone. Airlocked and out the goddamn door, right? This guy gets to fall from as far up as there is an actual gravitational pull in space. And what's the best, though? The best is watching Democrats try to put this guy on the moral high ground now in order to help this Donald Trump indictment story, right? So you can see the strings better than you've ever seen them before. You can see the uniparty better than you've ever seen it before. And you can see, in this case, how the political lines are getting so blurred that, again, the puppet strings that would have you sit in a fake prison of two ideas between red and blue is incapable of keeping people in that prison anymore. And another story here, RFK starting to really understand, not that I doubted he understood this, right? But what we see with Kennedy is the amount of cheating that's going on in the Democrat primary means he's starting to actually have to publicly say he's looking for new options. So if you were thinking about realignment in America and the capacity for an independent run in the 2023 election, look no further than RFK now, because it looks like he's starting to motivate towards there. The reason is they've changed and screwed him over even more when it comes to the primary process. And here's what he says, right? This is from the chief nerd. Robert F. Kennedy on new tricks the DNC is pulling, says he might have to look at other alternatives. And here's his exact quote. They've made rules that if any candidate sets foot in the state of Iowa or sets foot in the state of New Hampshire, then none of the votes that are cast for that candidate will be tallied. In other words, any delegate that I win in New Hampshire or Iowa would go instead to the president. If you add up all the super delegates that they control and all of the automatic delegates that just go to the party, I would have to win almost 80% of all the states. Now, I think he can do that, right? I think he can do that. But what's happening here is he's talking about the rigged process, right? And it's the inability. And he did this interview with Forbes saying that this is going to happen, and that he's going to go and do this. Now, some people are saying, oh, that means Kennedy's going to go for the Trump VP ticket, and now it probably looks pretty good. What I still see happening is an independent run, and I think an independent run can work this time. This is the only time where an actual independent ticket could do the trick. I think with an independent ticket, you can win the presidency with just over 30% of the popular vote. And I think you can get enough states, because it's an electoral college system. I think you can get enough electoral college votes with that system in order to put you over the top. Now, it's a threshold number, so it's not just whoever wins the most, right? You have to get 271 of the actual electoral college votes to get there. I don't know how to do the math on it in any credible way. But if you put three people in the pot, someone still has to win all the electoral college votes, right? Not many states split the electoral college. Maine splits their electoral college, so you can get, half of the votes or something like that. But there's not a lot of states that do that. Mostly it's a winner take all. So you don't actually have to get 50% of the vote to get 271 of the electoral college votes. If you get 30% of your state, you might actually get the required number to get all the electoral college votes. And I think that's what you need, right? So just look at the shift here, right? Just look at the shift. We have now with Elon owning X, he did something that no media company, he has another asset that no other media company in the history of the world has ever owned, which is independent infrastructure to run that media network. Because he can actually front run AT&T and the cell phone companies because he owns the satellites and can literally tomorrow create a phone which would run on those satellites and would be able to free most Americans from their cell phone bills. He can actually even run his media company X on the satellites that he owns. So not even AT&T can do this, right? So luckily, we have a pretty powerful participant in the war and who's controlling 80% of the tonnage in space. I mean, it's a major advantage for our team. It's a major advantage, right? And just wait until some of those satellites end up helping us propagate Bitcoin nodes, which I'm sure they're already doing, but from terrestrial mines. But you never know. Some of those might get put up there, and that would be a lot of fun. So look at the realignment here, right? But that's not it, right? How about this one? We get Tulsi Gabbard. She was on Joe Rogan's show yesterday. They were talking a lot about Maui, of course, right? They were talking about the fire and what was going on with the predatory investors buying the homes, the water management, and this is what Tulsi said. What I heard over and over again was no one from the country, state, or the federal government has shown their face in our community. It's neighbors helping neighbors, family helping families. People on the island of Molokai are loading up on whatever they have in their general store on these little boats and running them at a private boat dock in West Maui because that's the only place that wouldn't be blocked from bringing food, water, and medical supplies. I don't have a good answer as to why they continue to block the roads, why they blocked Kai, Lenny, and others from using their boats and jet skis to bring supplies in through the water. You can say that they were trying to secure the area, but you're blocking friends and families from bringing necessary supplies in. Why aren't you communicating with the people? The results of the decisions left people, families, and communities stranded in their most dire time of need. And the mayor didn't show his face until almost 2 weeks after the fire happened. And Joe Rogan says, how is it possible that these people could lose their homes and lose their land? And she goes on and says, the alarms were not sounded because of this fire. Now, I continue to have a defense for that I think is valid, right? A tsunami warning system doesn't tell you to run away from a fire coming from the mountains. It tells you to run to the fire accidentally. It's a weird thing, right? It tells you to get away from the water, and away from the water to me is up there. So I don't really put much stock, and I don't really bother arguing this alarm thing. I agree you could have made up a rule on the spot, but the guidelines clearly said this is a tsunami warning system. Do not ring it in for any other reason but a tsunami, because people will run the wrong way. A tsunami warning, you're taught to run away from the wave. So I don't mind discounting that one, right? But this is the interesting one. Tulsi says they turned on their hoses and it was like dribbles of water. So they are literally scooping water out of the toilet bowls and grabbing rainwater from buckets, trying to fight fires in their communities to save their homes. There was a request that was put into the state to divert the water so it could be used to fight the fires. And there was some type of 6 or 8 hour delay before that decision was made, right? Now, but this is all known. We've talked about this before. Meanwhile, they drive through one of those resorts, right? And they see the sprinklers on for golf courses, no restrictions whatsoever at hotels. And that's why people are wondering what is going on here, right? But it wasn't just that, right? Tulsi, who was also a speaker at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami, I got to meet her. She was great, right? There was lots of fun seeing her talk with RFK and all the other people we had there. I was happy I'd never met her before, so I was blabbing with her. I'll even just add one, I was doing a lot of the hosting of the news desk at Bitcoin 2023. And this is just a little fun aside, but I was on the news desk, which is set up kind of like a sports desk, right? You get some analysts and we read and react to what's going on stage. And I had BTC sessions. And so I was the host and I was getting a little message in my ear saying, okay, you got to wrap up. Tulsi's going on real soon, real soon. And so I cut BTC sessions off and I said, BTC sessions, you are not the most famous person with a streak in your bangs. We got to go to the one with who is the most famous person in the world with a streak in their bangs. On to Tulsi Gabbard. If you guys don't know, Tulsi has this, lovely gray silver kind of streak in her bangs. Here's what she says, right? They start talking about US being a banana republic and Donald Trump. And here's the way to the end, and you're going to see the realignment. You're going to see how much things have changed and how ineffective the puppet strings have been and how much of an opening there is now for a new system like Bitcoin to come in and show the way with our peer connection system and our peer-to-peer model that is absolutely not top-down and does not require us to trust media or the Washington Post or the government or and doesn't ask us to rely on a government to come help out when it comes to fires, right? Just as she said, peer-to-peer, neighbors helping neighbors, had nothing to do with FEMA and all these other losers. So here's what she says, right? So they're talking about Donald Trump. So Joe Rogan says it's banana republic stuff. And Tulsi says these terrible things that are happening in our country because we have people in power that care more about themselves and their power than they do about the country, the people, and democracy. They are setting this incredibly dangerous precedent that now, much like many banana republics in the world, whoever is in power has the ability to politicize and weaponize that power to go after their political opponent. Take away whatever people think about Trump, the consequences of what is actually happening, and what so many of the Democratic elite are justifying in the name of protecting democracy is absolutely destroying it. These are incredible. Destroying it. Joe Rogan. Isn't it fascinating that the deep state, the CIA, and the FBI weren't generally discussed before Trump got into office in 2016? Right. So that this is the interesting question, and I think starts to show the realignment. And just look at Tulsi's answer to understand that we are now adrift, and that these puppet strings in many ways are broken. We can tell by measuring this realignment. Right now, this is a Democrat candidate for president in 2020. All right, she was a primary candidate for president in 2020, and this is what she says: because he's the guy that broke through. You look at what the government and the FBI were doing before the election even happened to try to take him off the field, right? To try to eliminate him from being a choice that voters could seriously consider. You look at what the media, even Fox News, did at the time so people wouldn't take him seriously. He's the guy that broke through. He's the guy that talked very openly about the military-industrial complex. Now, I've said before there are reasons why I love Trump, right? And will always love him, like love, right? I think the love comes from how disappointing he can be sometimes as a person, but that doesn't change the skills and the things that he did that you can never, ever forget and always be thankful for. I've said many times that him destroying the Republican Party in the primary process in 2015 was one of the most amazing things that people like me, I didn't even think it was possible, right? I didn't even think it was possible. And to watch him do it, I was appreciative even at the time. And indeed, I always got excited when he would mention the words military-industrial complex because I was a big Eisenhower fan. I followed the history of the 1960 election very closely. I'm a big Nixon fan as well. So Nixon, of course, was Eisenhower's vice president. So I had a pretty good instinct about what was going on with this military-industrial complex story before any of this. And whenever Trump would talk about it, I always thought, wow, like this is the first time you're getting anyone to say these things. And indeed, that's one of the other things that Trump has done. He's made it so normal. And I remember, again, I've mentioned this story several times, but I think it's a great one, right? I was in China in 2016 in September as we were leading into the election, just around the time of the Billy Bush Sunday grabber by the really rude stuff and all of that, right? The awful stuff, right? And I remember a Chinese spy, so many Chinese spies around us on that trip, right? Vitalik was there. I still to this day, I think when the history books of crypto are written, we're going to find out that many, many people were compromised in that 2016 trip to China. I had lived in Asia before. I had spent a lot of my young man days in Japan and South Korea. I had an idea of how the normal process goes with girls and all of that stuff, right? What I saw in 2016 was honey traps everywhere. And I was warning everyone. I was saying, guys, this is not real. Stop it right now. You're not that rich, right? They're not into you for your crypto. That's not what's happening here. Not a lot of people could see it, right? I saw it instantly and obviously. Just because I knew what it looked, I knew what the normal thing looked like, and it looked nothing like what people were experiencing there. And so I knew it. And I identified one of the spies. And I said to that spy, and we got along after, right? Once I outed the spy, I was like, I know what you really do. They said to me, right? We started just having a talk about politics and censorship and all these kinds of things. And the spy said, well, in America, what you have is way worse than we've got in China. You've got self-censorship, right? And so what? Our government says, don't say this. They have some algorithms, da 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 da. But even though they know everything that I say, right? He was saying it as the spy. Even though they know everything I say, and they absolutely spy on me all the time, I can say whatever I want. I can say this person's an idiot, that person's an idiot. No one gives a shit, right? I'm an inconsequential agent, is what the person said. But what you have in your society says is everyone policing each other and themselves, much more dangerous. And that made me think, oh, geez, this person's right. But it also made me realize what benefit Trump brought, because Trump is the antithesis of Obama in that way, right? Obama is one of the most self-censored people you're going to find. And I mean that by someone who was all in on the focus groups and the professional speechwriters, and as Trump used to call him, teleprompter guy. It's one of Trump's best insults. All teleprompter guy. He didn't even, in the primary days, he didn't even have to, before Trump himself started using a teleprompter, which was always a failure, right? Trump off the cuff, when he was talking about this military industrial complex, right? It was one of the best things about the Trump 2016 and Trump 2015 campaigns was that he was giving 10,000 unsolicited words a day. Unscripted, unsolicited. Anyone who wanted to talk to him was getting the whole treatment. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton didn't give one single unsolicited word in 8 or 9 months. Like nothing. He was giving 10,000 a day, completely changing how you run for president. And that's how Vivek does it now, and RFK does it now, and all of the interesting candidates now do it Trump's way. It's not speeches and go on the media and all that kind of stuff. It's something totally different, right? So Trump, in that time, in that unsolicited time, that's when he was doing the great stuff like, John McCain's a war hero. I like guys who don't get caught. Come on. It was the best, right? But he was talking about the military industrial complex at the time. And as I said, it always thrilled me, like a real thrill when I heard him talk about it, because it was like one of those things that you knew was real and everyone thought was just a conspiracy theory or stupid, but you knew it was there, right? It was so obvious. And so when she comes out, a Democrat candidate for president just 4 years ago comes out and says that Trump is the guy who broke through. He's the guy who did the tough thing of talking and normalizing talk about the military industrial complex. And indeed, you can't ever forget that's what Trump did, right? Which is an amazing thing. And if you think about the implications, let's say, you can start to see how much everything else is changing now. And we do have this realignment. We do have a very clear way of understanding puppet strings. We had a president who could not self-censor himself and has shown the way to other candidates like Vivek, like Tulsi, like RFK, who now do not play the self-censorship game. They're using his battle plan and even adding to it, right? RFK with the mega podcast approach, and Vivek with surfing behind every media narrative the way Trump did, saying things that just light people's brains on fire, getting all these invites to left-wing shows. Trump used to get those, right? That was really effective for Trump because he'd drive them all nuts, and then they would have to pay attention to him. So again, I think that within all of this realignment, within this puppet string piece, you're going to see people who've never voted for before. Remember, we have about one third, more than a third. It's more than a third of Americans who don't vote. if you get even a little bit of those, you completely change the way the system works completely. We saw the corruption in Wisconsin for that election, and that's starting to get talked about more, the Facebook one. And this was an actual, as I understand, the 2020 election corruption story in Wisconsin is already got fines and is judged by the justice system as being exactly what it looks like: election interference and election influence. And now, I'm not an expert on this case, but what I understand is Facebook was able to basically make a donation in kind because they could use their platform to figure out who was going to vote for whom, and then put resources and get out the vote to those people. Now, is it illegal? I think the court said it was because there's money involved and it's like-kind contribution and things like that. But again, you're seeing the capacity now to even thwart that kind of technology, right? Because if you can motivate a whole bunch of people who are not normal voters to vote, you're going to get a completely unpredictable result if you're only using the old systems to predict what's going to happen. And so that's, one of the things that can happen here is peer groups of people that spread information between them much more efficiently. Neighbors helping neighbors in Hawaii, Bitcoiners helping Bitcoiners in all around the world, right? Don't forget, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash network. But as we've often underlined here on the Breakup, the innovation of the peer-to-peer model actually extends throughout all parts of our life. It extends to how we learn, right? Bitcoin meetups and events have, I think, been the most productive form of financial literacy propagation in the history of the world. I don't think anyone has ever learned more about finance and how money actually works than through Bitcoin meetups at the scale that we've been able to teach people, at the scale that we've been able to open people's eyes to what actually happens and how the puppet strings work from a financial point of view, not from an intellectual point of view, from just a who benefits point of view, right? A follow the money point of view. Bitcoiners have been able to become incredibly literate on how systems of power actually work. And because we've become so literate in that, we can share it very easily with other people. And that's why people continue to come to events, why people continue to come to meetups. It's not just to learn about the P2P electronic cash network, although that is the basis of everything else. When you learn about that, you're able to start seeing how everything else works in the environment. And you're able to start seeing things like, the Phil Bum story, or even the way things are changing around us. The story yesterday, I was mentioning again, the New York story, right? The migrants coming in, New York changing, Mayor Eric Adams sounding exactly like Donald Trump, right? Exactly like Donald Trump, saying New York City is going to be over if we let this immigration thing continue. Now you get another deputy mayor here who also gave a couple comments and saying, look, just being realistic about this, right? Not getting sucked into the politics. Now, I don't expect anything more from her than being a raging libtard in the future, right? I don't expect anything more from this woman than being a raging, absolute moronic retard. Pardon me, I don't want to use that word. Raging, moronic, libtard is, I guess, good enough. So here's what she says, right? She says it's not even the Governor Abbott who's doing this, right? It's not him. She's saying this is a problem of people just coming to New York. And he's only responsible for 10% at best of New York's problems right now. It's just people coming. So this is someone who I think is having and being forced to look exactly at the situation as it is, because they've got problems, right? So, and then, what about this one in Minneapolis? Right? What about this one in Minneapolis? So yesterday, a sad story, very sad story. She is the vice chairwoman of the Democrat Party in Minnesota, right? And so Minnesota, of course, was the, some people say the ground zero for the George Floyd protests and the BLM stuff of 2020, because of course George Floyd died in Minneapolis. And she had her party position at the time, and she came out, and people have gone into her social media now. I'll tell you what happened to her in a second, but people have gone back in her social media and we got to defund the police. I'm going to work for the Democrat Party in Minnesota. We're going to fix all this, get rid of the police. Well, they've had some success, right? Her exact statement is, we are going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. If you're still disagreeing with this basic fact, I'm not sure what to say to you. That's what she said in 2020. Okay. Well, yesterday with all of her kids, right? She goes to her car and she got beaten up and broken her leg and her face is all full of blood. They kicked her ass. Her name is Shivanthi Seth. I can't say her name correctly. Sathanandan. Shivanthi. Anyway, pardon me for getting it wrong. I wish I could get the syllables right. With a bit of practice, I could get there, I'm sure. Anyway, she says, remember now, she's changed her tune. She says the following: remember me when you were thinking about letting juveniles roam our streets instead of holding them accountable. She told a local media outlet that she advocates for tougher penalties for violent offenders, right? So, I don't want to get into the Schadenfreude, right? That just opens you up to bad muju, right? I'm not going to laugh at her for what happened to her. It sounds pretty bad. But what I see here is someone completely changing their mind. And I don't want anyone to have this kind of ill will. But look at what happened to Tulsi and the Hawaiians. Look at what's happening in Texas. Look at what's happening in Florida. Look at what's happening in New York. Look at what's happening in Chicago. And now Minnesota. You're getting people who are realizing that they've been manipulated and bad things are happening to them. So, all that said, we are on the cusp of the change we all want to see, right? Peer groups changing, Phil Bump losing, and the normal forces of control just don't seem to work anymore. As Daniel says, Dems love Dick. They love Dick Cheney. And it's not going to work for them, right? Not going to work out. All right, let's see. I got to go do spaces with a few real interesting folks in a few minutes for Bitcoin Magazine. So I will be ending a little bit short, but let's see what they say. Nuke dollars sound way cooler than petrodollars. They really fucked up. I'm going to start calling Bitcoin nuke dollars. Yeah, that's a good name for it. That's a totally good name for it. Nuke dollars. That works. It's the Dick chain. Dick chain. Nuke dollars. Dick chain helped make petrodollars. Of the many memes that have emerged from this show, the space drop is my favorite. Airlock for this guy. Airlock. Dick Cheney gets dropped too. I mean, he can't. We can't keep him around, right? He's got to go. I guess Dick thinks a real man must murder thousands of people for oil and money. Yeah, this is one of the worst people ever. If RFK goes independent, he will kill the Dems. Either he wins or Trump does. That's it, P-Man Van. Yeah. That's a big part of it. And again, everyone going on about the 14th Amendment now, the Dems trying to make this into a real thing, like states saying Trump can't run. First of all, it looks like there's real momentum, right? But even if Trump isn't on the ballot in a couple states, they're going with like the Iranian democracy plan here, right? Well, we had a free vote. We just said only these people could vote, and then you went with them, right? It's not going to be enough states. You can still get enough electoral college. So they're going to try, but again, are they going to do it to Vivek too? Are they? How much of this can they manipulate to put someone like Gavin or the other one, the vice president now in charge? Don't know. Oh yeah, and we will talk a little more. One thing I didn't realize. Do you know this is something I got from that Tucker Carlson interview with the gay stuff with Obama? Did you know that Beau Biden was the one who he tried to get that guy arrested? He's like on the name, and weeks later, Joe Biden becomes vice presidential candidate. When this guy went public, I can't remember his name now. It was Beau Biden who is on the police report trying to get him arrested. And was that the introduction to these kind of criminal elements for the Obama campaign? I don't know, but it sounds kind of weird, right? Could be a coincidence. Who knows? But if you got a problem, sounds like you got to call the Bidens because they know how to do the dirty deeds. So, but who knows? Who knows? Seems the episode with the title, The CIA Breaker and Deal Maker, is coming soon. Yeah, RFK and Orange Man for the win. Yeah, I like that title too. I like that title. Hawaii was probably the first attempt at a new type of attack. Start way out where their most mainland USA won't relate to. Get media to phase it out of the Overton. Move on to next stretch of homes. Yikes. Not a good picture, Tommy. Pretty scary stuff. Isn't it interesting how conversations about the climate crisis often overshadow the less apparent political agendas at play? Let's not forget that this isn't just about environmental preservation. No, it isn't. You can tell because the whole plan is to get each individual to do like these stupid little things, and that's going to fix it. Like, what a dumb strategy. We know it's like a handful of companies responsible for all of it. Why not just make them do something? Because it's not about them, right? It's about other stuff, obviously. It's about exerting political control. Yeah, it's essential to remain mindful of the larger picture where environmental concerns and political maneuvering often intersect. Yeah, exactly. I could be wrong, but I think the 24 election and criminalization of Trump is to protect the Ukraine lie. It looks like it. If he is elected, he will most likely cut them off, and then the truth will emerge for sure. For sure. Well, I mean, but the Ukraine thing is, to me anyway, the result of Trump getting out of Afghanistan and Syria. The system needs its money laundering polarity. If it doesn't have its release valve, it doesn't work. Right? You can't get paid. The money laundering industrial no, it can't survive Bitcoin. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. The whole defund the police push by and remains a totally batshit idea. Yeah, that's the Minneapolis police. Yeah. Well, this woman is found out the hard way, unfortunately. What about educate and train the police properly? I think it would be better. Look, I continue to say that was their only good idea, right? But there should have been, like, you got to go whole hog here. You got to say, okay, no more police. Everyone get a gun, right? I'm down with that, right? Like, just you can't be like, oh, no more police, but everyone's just going to be on their best behavior. It's because the police were around that everyone was misbehaving. That was the stupidity of it. Cameras, guns, there are ways to deal with no police. Like don't ever fall into the trap of arguing that we need police. We don't. Right now, I would prefer with the way the world's built today. But on a Bitcoin standard, we're not going to need police. Like, I mean, we've got to take care of each other better, but that's not because we tax ourselves into the fucking ground and spend all our money on know-it-alls and their university degrees and their distaste for even being around frontline service, right? We'll get there. But that was a conversation worth having. I think with genetic testing, right, you can drastically reduce the police force because now they're able to determine and find people with genetics much easier than ever before. So there's a lot of answers there. There's a lot of answers. I think crime, it will be gone. In Satoshi Wedding Murders, each of us with our own Bitcoin wallet that's also a floating AI that can record and broadcast and see everything that you see, there is rarely crime in that world. So how far away are we from that? I think we're close. And even now, like, what are you going to steal? Like my computers? What do I have? Clothes? I don't even have a TV. Right? My computers won't work if you steal them. They're gone. So I don't know. I don't even know why I would lock a door anymore. I drive an old car. No one's going to steal that, right? Let them try, I guess. There you go. All right. Let's see what we got here. 5:45. What happened to my Nolan alarm? Good morning, Thomas. You can catch it on replay, my man. You can catch it on replay. Keep up the great work. Keep up the great work, brother. Thanks, Wild Hustle. They get tsunami text when there is an earthquake 3 days away. Could have sent a text. Yeah, Matt G. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know enough about the system. All I know is that the storm moved, or the fire moved at 80 miles an hour. I think the person who would sound the alarm had a tough choice to make, and there were actual guidelines that said don't do it. it's impossible to expect someone in that condition to make the right choice. That's where I'm at with the alarm. Like I wouldn't want to be in the position of that person, and I don't think there was a right answer. So I think that person is off the hook. That's just what I think. You know, I that's where I'm at on the alarm one. Now, if there would have been a piece in the guideline that gave discretion that said, you know, do it in case, then it's his fault. But it says he's not allowed. I mean, as I understand the rules, I've never read them, but I've seen other people explain it. I've heard other people explain it. They said that if the guidelines were explicit, this is for tsunamis only, no exceptions. So, I mean, you have to kind of, you know, give them that. Have a fabulous day, all. We are good. I don't know what that means totally. P-Man Van Wag to. I think we are going for the win. We are going for the win. Anyway, I love it. We like the Wag Me and we like the Wag TW. When's chapter 2 drop? I got to do it. I'm not happy with the quality. I'm not able to get the AI voice to, you know, audio stuff the way I want. I've got a whole bunch of chapters that are pretty much there, but I've got to redo the audio. We're getting close though. Have a great day, fellow Bitcoin statesmen and connoisseurs indeed. So catch me in 5 minutes. I'll be on the spaces. See y'all tomorrow, everyone. Ciao, ciao.